Welcome my swashbuckling viewers to another Man of War Battle Report presentation. The Crown of Command is proudly sponsored by Black Arrow Minis that cater for all your second-hand miniature needs. So go check them out at www.blackarrowminis.com today. And before we set sail, can I direct you to Kraken's Wake YouTube channel, as Cameron offers a very well presented walkthrough of Man of War and how to access a range of materials to play this classic GW90 specialist game. Now onto our game today, starting with my Skaven fleet under the command of Skaven warlord Snitchlips. He commands aboard his man of war the Doombringer, along with a squadron of Warp Raiders and a squadron of Deathburners, which all have a Chaos Gift of Nurgle. He's accompanied by a Grey Seer Snitch Twitch, a Skaven Assassin. I bought 3 Rat Ogre tokens, and also a Sea Dragon and a Behemoth as my monster choices to bring the total to 900 points. Skaven magic is kinda unique in that it has 8 predetermined spells in hand at the start of the game. But like Chaos magic, Skaven magic is indeed dangerous, as it follows the rule of 1. Like in any roll in Man of War apart from boarding actions, a roll of 1 means that it automatically fails, but in this case for the Skaven it means that they have miscast, and they must roll on the miscast table to follow the effects. I drew at random my 3 Chaos Gifts of Nurgle for each of the Deathburners. Tentacles allow a possible crew pluck. Poisoned Arrows is a strong card for crew sabotage. And Ship Rot gives the Death Galley a catapult looter with Nurgle Rot counters. Skaven crews also have unique rules depending on how many points your fleet consists of. They also have special morale rules for critical hits scored on their vessels, as their crew may decide to jump and swim. I allocated my crew to the ship templates, but all crew types are not able to be mixed, so the slaves took to the Warp Raiders, the Clan Rats to the Deathburners, and the Elite Stormvermin to the Doombringer. I also placed 2 Rat Ogres on the Deathburner and the last remaining one on the Doombringer. Now let's see what our Nurgling Nick is taking today in his Chaos Fleet. His Chaos Fleet captain is none other than Crusty Nigel aboard the Plague Ship, the Great Winged Terror as his second Man of War ship choice, a squadron of Plague Crushers, a squadron of Death Galleys, a Bane Tower with a Chaos Sorcerer, and he also purchased 2 Chaos gift cards for his Man of War ships. Nick drew his cards and allocated them to his ships. The Death Galleys get a free gift for their patron god, which in this case Khorne, God of Skulls. Nick also drew 6 Chaos spell cards as his power level starts at 6, which may be reduced if he miscasts during the game. Nick secretly filmed what cards he drew for his Man of War and Death Galleys. Warp Flight is a very powerful transportation gift, also regenerate damage for his Plague Ship. Frenzy is a nice card for boarding actions. Flaming Prowl adds some potential flaming damage, and a Biting Skull can make it really tough to break out from boarding actions. And here is what the Dark Master bestowed on his hand for the first turn. We decided to play a Plague Fleet scenario in the Chaos Wastes and rolled for it on the chart. The result was Plaguemonger, which was perfect for Nick as he needed the Plague Ship to be able to succeed in his mission of infecting terrain pieces within the seascape. We followed the normal rules for generating the terrain, and I got to place all the terrain pieces. But after terrain had been generated by the Skaven player, Nick was able to turn 2 of the terrain pieces into Chaos Terrain features, which he also rolled at random. He rolled for the Sea of Fire and the Boiling Mists as the 2 Chaos Terrain pieces featured in the game today. After rolling for sides, I placed my monster territorial templates. Then Nick began deploying his first squadron of death galleys as he chose table sides, winning the roll-off. With both fleets hugging to the side of the seascape, this is lining up to be a direct and bloody affair in the centre of the table. After wishing Nick luck, we both rolled for the first turn, and I just narrowly snuck in there, rolling a 3 to win and snatch the initiative for the turn. But of course we can't set sail without wetting our palates with some refined beer and wishing ourselves luck in today's game. And before we start the game, the boiling mists have to move d6 inches at the beginning of each turn, blowing in the direction of the wind. And as I won the initiative, I get to start the magic phase, so first I cast Vermintide on his plague ship, hoping to kill off some Chaos Warriors. Snitch Twitch consumed 5 Warpstone counters, adding +1 for his level, making a success on a 2+ to cast.
I don't want to know the rest of the spell. Like, is that like the worst one or like the best one?
I'm not telling you.
Because if that's on the nicer side,
Yeah.
it's going to get worse. Isn't it?
Right, Skaven versus Chaos, mate. It doesn't get any worse than this in Magic.
Having rolled a 4 and succeeding in casting the spell, Nick had to decide if he wished to counter or not. He did decide to counter using a spell of his own to attempt a dispel. Chaos Magic allows you to use power cards to increase your success level. Succeeding in dispelling the spell, I now activated the Sea Dragon and summoned the Fiery Beast on a roll of a 4. Taking the Grey Seer gives me a +1 to this roll, so normally 4, but in this case I can summon the monsters on a 3+. Rolling a 7, he swam just short of the Plague Crushers, much to my disappointment. Nick then activated the Death Galleys and advanced them up the centre of the board. Feeling a little bit lucky now, I thought I'd summon the Behemoth, and to my surprise rolled another 4, bringing him to the surface. Its beastly gaze was locked down onto the Great Winged Terror, but falling short on movement, I thought it best to scamper away in cover. The Bane Tower used 2 energy tokens to move and then fire its 360-degree bolts of Tzinch at the Fire Dragon, resulting in a wound on the Beast of the Deep. The Warp Raider movement is rolled at the beginning of each battle phase, rolling 2d6 with any doubles resulting in no moving or shooting during that turn. With the movement generated, they steamed up with their giant rats generating momentum in the paddle wheels. The plague ship moved up and released its putrid trail of stench and decay. The death burners taking a detour and making a swift right turn maneuver. The plague crushers then sailed up behind their warlord Crusty Nigel, armed with their loaded Nurgle's Rot catapult ammunition. Then the Doombringer did move in behind the main fleet and decided not to ring the bell this turn. Then Nick activated the Great Wing Terror, used 2 energy tokens to move to take advantage of its 4 remaining tokens to shoot the behemoth. But resulted in misses as he needed a 5 or 6 to hit. Second turn had the Skaven winning the initiative again, and this time casting Skitterleap. The spell allows me to move any ship to any place on the seascape. My target was the plague ship, to put it into the Sea of Fire. Nick was not blessed with power cards this turn, so his chances were slim indeed. And rolling a 1, he miscast and had to immediately roll on the miscast chart to determine the sorcerer's fate. Rolling a 3 resulted in him losing a power level so that he can only have 5 cards in his hand per phase. Skitterleaping into the Sea of Flame, the plague ship had to roll under or equal to the number of below the waterline hit locations.
It's a dead ship.
Yep. Fucking hell.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, mate.
Yes.
That was a brutal early end to the proud Man of War of Chaos. The boiling mist moved again, and given the proximity of how close the Great Wing Terror and the Bane Tower was to the behemoth, I thought it best to activate him first and move into safety. Nick continued to sail his plague crushers forward. And the Sea Dragon positioned itself into a better area of attack for next turn. Nick then activated the Bane Tower, hovering over the centre of the seascape in pursuit of the behemoth. And the Plague Burner's paddles had them repositioned to be able to release their deadly vapours on the Chaos Fleet next turn. Not taking any chances, the death galleys patrolled around the edge of the boiling mist. And the Skaven warp raiders went full throttle towards the death gullies to unleash their payload of warp fire next turn. Nick then revealed Warp Flight to my surprise as he positioned his Man of War, the Great Wing Terror, to the rear of my Doombringer. Doing this allows Nick to save all 6 bolts of Dzinch energy to unleash it upon my Man of War. All 6 shots caused significant damage as my dice rolls failed me and resulted in a couple of critical hits. Those 2 critical hits that Nick rolled resulted in 2 damage locations to my below the waterline, and also resulted in 2 of the Storm Vermin and 1 rat ogre being lost overboard. If that wasn't bad enough for old Snitch Lips, I had to roll now on the Skaven morale chart. Luckily at a +1, given that it was the Doombringer. And thankfully I didn't lose any more crew as I passed both rolls. Then I activated my Man of War to turn and get closer to the Great Winged Terror, but not rolling any doubles did nothing significant this turn. In turn 3, Nick stole the initiative and decided to cast the chaos spell Carnage, but with no power cards, having to roll a 6 to succeed. After Nick failing, the Skaven felt more confident and they cast Madness at the Great Winged Terror and consumed enough warpstone that I couldn't fail.
What a one.
Oh,
You fucking...
Snitch Twitch cursed his luck and had to roll a dice for each warpstone consumed, which resulted in 9 warpstone tokens lost and weakening his magical potential. The Warp Raiders' warp tank fumes must have been sending the paddle rats into a frenzy as they rolled very high in movement yet again this turn. But the Khorne Death Galleys got the upper wind on them and got off a ram that sent one of the Warp Raiders to the bottom of the seabed. Nick fired off his flaming prow to good effect, as it did damage one of the bows of one of the raider ships, and he also damaged another raider with a cannon shot. The behemoth waded through the water to reach the Bane Tower. Unable to perform its special attack, as the Bane Tower has no below the waterline hits, we went straight into the boarding actions. The behemoth thrashed and gnawed at the cultist and it managed to easily overthrow the crew and then devoured the Chaos Sorcerer in one gulp. The Great Winged Terror, trying to make amends, targeted the Doombringer, and its bolt struck another 2 criticals, which sent the last crew overboard and resulting in Snitch Lips to be sizzled and barbecued, leaving the Doombringer crewless and abandoned in the end. The Warp Raiders have a special template attack that throws 3 dice, but any doubles rolled will see the vessels explode in fur and warpstone fuel. The last 2 remaining ships managed to shoot out their flammable fuel, engulfing the Death Galleys and seeing one of them take flame damage, resulting in placing a blaze counter on the ship template, which we need to roll for in the end phase. Even the blood-crazed Khorne cultists, in their frenzy, were no match for the swarms of rat slaves. And the Skaven slaves saw that all the cultists were dead and left the ship abandoned in the end. The second Warp Raider had managed to board and send flame and fury aboard the Death Galley, seeing its crew to the depths of the sea and leaving the second Death Galley abandoned. Plague Crusher's catapults were launched at a Skaven Warp Raider. Unfortunately, I failed to save, and that meant that Nick could roll on the critical hit table, and me also rolling on the Skaven morale chart, but luckily passing in rolling a 6. The Sea Dragon still swimming on the edges of the battle lines, waiting to pick its prey. And the Deathburners started closing the gap and set light to their flail sensors. The Skaven clawed back the initiative, and the boiling mists moved again to the edge of the map. The behemoth searched for new prey and set his path towards the plague crushers. And having rolled double 3, we consulted the chart, but luckily for me, the sea monster remained under my control. Then the behemoth tried to attempt his special attack and tried to pierce the hull. Nick managed to save, and he also drew in the later boarding engagement, resulting in a wounded behemoth infected with Nurgle's rot, and a loss to one of the crew counter on the plague crusher. Nick then manoeuvred his plague crushers in range to fire their Nurgle tainted catapult ammunition at my fleet. With some of the shots hitting and some of them missing, Nick managed to inflict a double blow to a death burner. When hit with a Nurgle catapult, a further roll of a 5 or 6 further inflicted with a Nurgle's rot counter, which in the end phase has a chance to kill off more of the ship's crew. One of my death burners in my squadron, blessed with one of the Nurgle's gifts, responded with moving within tentacle reach of one of the ships, but failed to pluck any unsuspecting cultist. The fumes released, however, did yield positive results, and a roll of a 5 that had one of the cultists choking to its death. The second death burner had reached its intended target and sent a volley of poisoned arrows, killing the last cultist and leaving it uncrewed and marooned. The last death burner sent a loaded catapult shot onto a plague crusher and managed to infect it with Nurgle's rot. Nick then powered up the Great Winged Terror to fly within shooting distance of the straggler death burner. But luckily for me, it just fell short of distance, much to my relief. The Sea Dragon, having picked its target, waded through the water with its fiery breath attack, but didn't result in any damage. But the boarding action resulted in a draw, forcing both of us to lose a wound, and saw the Plague Crusher abandoned. In the end phase, we had to see whether the fires had spread, remained stationary, or it had been extinguished. And no sailor worth his salt can go out to battle without a good feed, so off to the local burger house we sailed to fill our seafaring bellies. Nick had won the initiative back for the turn, and the boiling mist had left and reappeared on the other side of the seascape. The remaining crewed Plague Crusher took aim at the behemoth, but yet again evaded the attack. The Sea Dragon rolled a double 5 for his movement, but remained under my control for the turn, and then it darted off to attack the next Plague Crusher. But without dealing any fire damage, the Sea Dragon then failed to win any of the boarding actions, seeing the death of the Sea Dragon and its body to sink to the deep depths of the sea. Under oar, the last remaining crewed death galley did a 180 turn, fired its cannon at long range, but I did manage to save it on a 5. The behemoth now was activated, and I rolled a double 2, resulting in it going into a frenzy and attacking the closest friendly ship. The death burner, being the closest, felt the brunt of the barbed horn tearing into the ship's hull and sinking it to the murky depths below. Chaos reigned the seas as the Great Winged Terror let loose a volley of powerful energy bolts which set locations ablaze and also critically damaging the Death Burner. And the failed morale check saw its entire crew overboard. Our Warp Raider set ablaze more locations on the Death Galley, and with the boarding action just being unwinnable for Nick, considering how many crew I had on board, we saw the trifecta of the Death Galleys now being abandoned in the centre of the sea. And my final activation for the turn was to see the last Warp Raider turn and fire its jets of warp flame to engulf another Plague Crusher, and to see many of its locations set ablaze. With the trails of fire and fury engulfing this sea of chaos, we decided it was time to tally up the battle honours to see who was the better of the two dead warlords of the chaos in this game. The game ended very closely, with the Skaven just managed to creep in slightly ahead of Nick's Chaos Fleet with 21 battle honours to 19 in the end. But no matter who won or lost, beer is always there to quell any animosity between two old grizzled servants of chaos at the end of the day. Again, thank you for watching, and if I could please ask that you give me a like, a comment to tell me that you really enjoyed watching the Battle Report today. Finally, a massive thank you to all of my patrons who continue to help support me here at the Crown of Command Studios each month. And it wouldn't be a Crown of Command production without a swearing Aussie bloopers at the end, so please pause if the kids are within earshot. +1 given that... fuck. He then tried to cast... fuck. And Nick will have to toast